Hey guys, and welcome back to Baddie in a Book. My name is Gabby, and today we have another book haul, but this time specifically inspired by Booktube. So I started my journey into reading, or being interested in reading, by Booktube specifically, because I wasn't really on TikTok that much at the time. And I remember about a year ago, I was up really late just watching YouTube videos in the background, kind of doing whatever, and somehow I came across a Booktube video. I don't remember who it was or which Booktuber it was, but essentially one video turned into two, turned into three, turned into a whole obsession with watching book reviews, watching book hauls, hearing people talk about books, hearing people discuss books, watching reading vlogs and all of that. And then it turned into me actually going into stores and constantly finding books, seeing books that I recognize, that I see people talk about in books, and it has grown my collection so crazily. I have so many books now, and all of these books specifically are books that I purchased specifically because they were mentioned somewhere, somehow on Booktube, and I was like, fuck it, why not? I literally have like a second chance romance going on with reading, because I used to love books when I was younger. I used to read books all the time when I was in middle school and high school, and then I became an adult, had to pay bills, had to work, my interests changed, and now we're back full circle, falling in love with reading all over again. So Booktube is really the one that kind of paved the way. It sounds so dramatic, but paved the way for me to start reading books again. And if I hadn't been up that late that night watching Booktube videos, or watching YouTube and that Booktube video just randomly populated, I wouldn't be here with tons of books and a passion for reading books again. So the first book that I picked up is a combination of a cover buy and a thrift buy. So this is called Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. If you've been anywhere here on Booktube, you've seen this book before. I'm really late to the game when it comes to this book because it's not something that is talked about heavily anymore. But I saw this in a thrift store, and so because it was thrifted, it was secondhand, it was super cheap and in really good condition, I decided to pick it up. The next book that I picked up are actually a box set from a fantasy romance YA series. It was actually something that I had seen here and there on Booktube, but didn't actually get a heavy interest into it until I saw Haley Pham do a reading vlog about it, and then also see Naya Reads and Smiles also talk about it as well, and she talked about how this was one of her favorite series. It was a few years old, that particular video, so it might have changed, it might have since changed, but because of the raving reviews from them two specifically, and just how much they loved and really enjoyed it, and also the pacing of this book with it being fast, I figured this would be a perfect series to dip my toes into the fantasy genre, and also kind of get myself used to world building until maybe I decide to want to read a bigger series. And that is the Shatter Me series. I ended up getting the box set on Amazon. You know me, I love having the entire book series of a series on my bookshelf rather than just getting one at a time. But this time it was justified, because I went on Amazon and I went to look at the price of one book, like the first one just being Shatter Me, and that one was like $10 by itself. This entire book set I think was like 15 or 16 or 25 or 26, something along those lines. It was really cheap for just this box set that I ended up finding, and I think I ended up finding this on like eBay, not on Amazon. So I ended up getting a really good price deal for this as well, and these covers also just look really pretty on my shelf. It comes with all 6. It doesn't have the novellas, so I can always purchase those separately, but the novellas are relatively cheap in comparison to the entire book series. The next book that I picked up is called While We Were Dating by Jasmine Guillory. Now, Jasmine Guillory is one of the Black authors that is mentioned quite a bit on Booktube. This one follows Ben Stevens and Anna Gardner, and it looks like it is just a single POV just from glancing into the book. Of course, it is a romance, and this one is a Hollywood esque romance where the woman is in the Hollywood limelight. But I've heard very good things about this book, so I'm really excited to pick this one up. I want to pick up eventually all of her books. So the next book that I picked up is called Queenie by Candace Carty Williams. Now this one follows a young woman, and she is kind of like in this weird place in her life, this weird, I would say, transitional place in her life. Her boyfriend just broke up with her. Her boss doesn't really see her. She kind of is a little bit invisible there at work. And then her family doesn't really seem very interested in what she has going on either. And so essentially this is just her kind of rediscovering herself, getting back on her own 2 feet after this major change in her life. So I was very excited to pick this one up. This was another thrifted one. I got this one off of secondsale.com, and it came in really, really good condition. It's got a few little, like, just slight little things wrong with it, but I was very excited to pick this up. I think I only paid like $3 or $4 for this one. Now, the next book that I picked up is this author is a Book Talk and Booktube favorite. You cannot watch a Book Talk Booktube video, especially mentioning Book Talk specifically. Like if the video is talking about Book Talk, this author is mentioned, and that is Miss Colleen Hoover. I got Confessed by her, and this is one of the not so talked about books of hers, and I've heard that this is very underrated in comparisons to some of her other books. So I hope that is the case, because if you've watched my previous hauls, my previous wrap-up videos, the books that I've read so far from her, I haven't found that book that has wowed me or taken my breath away, and I'm still on the search for that, so I'm hoping that this can be the one. The next book that I picked up to follow Miss Colleen Hoover is another author that is heavily talked about on Book Talk and Booktube, and that is Miss Allie Hazelwood. This is The Love Hypothesis. This book is absolutely everywhere. It is a romance. It's a professor and a student, I believe, and that's pretty much all that I really know about it, and it's just kind of like one of those cringy, corny romances, which is not necessarily a bad thing in my eyes. I love corny shit, so I'm hoping that I will really like this one. And then the next books that I ended up picking up is actually a series. Now, this one specifically is not nearly as talked about as much as the other authors' series that she has right now, specifically because the other series that she wrote is actually currently having the other book series that she has written and published is more popular right now because the show was just released. This particular set of books had movies that were released. And so that is To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han. I believe that these are the original covers of this series, and this is another book set that I was able to get thrifted. I got this off of Facebook Marketplace, and I think I paid $10 for the set of these 3 that are still in really, really good condition. They look like maybe they have been read once or twice, but I was really satisfied with the condition that they came in. There's like something on here. But essentially there are movies out there are movie adaptations out about this book. I think I've seen the first one most definitely, and I really enjoyed that particular movie, so I'm hoping that I will enjoy the books that much more, because they always say that the books are better than the movies. Now, the next book that I picked up is a favorite of Miss Steph Borer. Now, Miss Steph Borer was one of the first booktubers that I kind of got hooked on with reading and started reading all of her recommendation. I mean, I binge watched every book video that she had on her channel, but that is A Thousand Boy Kisses by Tilly Cole. She raves about this book. It's a childhood friends to lovers. She said it's very moving, it's very emotional, and it's a very captivating story. So I really hope that this lives up to her hype, because I'm trusting her on this one. And the other people that have also mentioned this to have also given good reviews about it as well, but she is the one to blame for me picking this one up. The next book that I picked up is another movie adaptation. It's another one that kind of was popular on Booktube for a while, and then it recirculated. It was really also popular on TikTok as well, but recently it resurfaced because the movie adaptation came out recently. And because of the movie adaptation coming out recently, I'm not sure if I will ever actually end up reading the book. We shall see, but I feel like this book is one of those that I just wanted to collect just to have, and and then maybe I'll just end up end up watching the movie. But this is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. I will say that now that this book has been out for a little while, there is mixed reviews about this book, but I got this thrifted. It was one that I recognize, and maybe I'll do a video in the future of me reading the book and then watching the movie for comparison. And then we have two classics. Now, I was surprised to actually see these on Book Talk and Booktube when I first joined, when I first started watching book content on the internet, because I remember these books, at least one of these being a book on our to read list when I was in school. And so I was very surprised, but apparently everyone still loves these. And these are actually, I would consider these like kind of like classics, just because of the fact that they were something that I think everybody in school read in English class at some point. I think majority, not everybody, but maybe a majority. That is The Kite Runner and A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini. So needless to say, I was very surprised to see these really talked about on Book Talk and Booktube still after all these years. So I wanted to add these two to my collection. Again, these were some that were thrifted. They were still in pristine condition, which I absolutely love that about thrifting books. One of my favorite things about thrifting books, especially when they're popular on places like Book Talk and Booktube, because I have found that with shopping for thrifted books, there are a lot of times where it's harder to find really popular Book Talk and Booktube books in the Goodwills and things of that nature in really good condition still and for an affordable price. So I was really happy to pick those two up. The next two books that I picked up is called Little Fires Everywhere and then Everything I Never Told You by Celeste Ng. If I'm being fully transparent, I really don't know what these two books are about, but I did see these in Goodwill, and like this book specifically is in brand new condition. I mean, look at that. This was $4 and it's in brand new condition. The original price of this book, I'm assuming, is like $15 or something like that, $16. So I have no idea what these two are about, but I do see these quite a bit on Booktube. So I wanted to pick these up, especially with them being thrifted and them being so cheap. So the next set of books that I picked up merely a cover by, I have no idea what they're about other than the fact that they are romance books. I ended up seeing a booktuber. She mentioned one of the editions of these books, and then when I found out that they were in these edition and they were a series, I had to pick up every single one of them. I don't remember what the name of the series is called, but I do know that it is a series by Saffron A. Kent, and it's a total of 5 books in the series. And it comes with My Darling Arrow, These Thorn Kisses, A Gorgeous Villain, Hey Mr. Marshall, and Bad Boy Blues. These editions are so stunning. The cover art, the illustrations. I love the naked hardback without having to worry about or deal with a dust jacket. I actually prefer these over like the dust jackets. If they could start continuing to make all books that are hardcovers like this rather than having a dust jacket on it. I will say the only time that I really like having a dust jacket is when the dust jacket is like a special edition, or just the book itself has been there has been more thought put into the book itself where the dust jacket is really beautiful, and then the inside of the book or the naked cover of the book also has engravings in it, gold foiling, you know how they do. In those cases, I enjoy a hardcover with a dust jacket. But in this case, I am totally okay with just a naked book with a bomb-ass cover directly on the book itself without having to worry about a dust jacket. I can read this because typically when I read my hardcovers, I take off the dust jacket because I don't want to destroy them unless they're already kind of destroyed. And then I'm like, okay, well then I really don't care. But in this case, I really do hope that I enjoy these books because I've heard really good things about them from the few people that have spoken on them. But I'm gonna be honest, these were merely just a cover buy. The next book that I picked up is another thrift find. Now this one is called My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. First and foremost, I love the cover art. It's absolutely stunning. I love the butterfly in the black and gray cover with the purple spine and back. I will say that this book, it has a lot of triggers in it from what I have heard and what I've seen people talk about. It is a very heavy book and a lot of heavy topics. So definitely if you are interested in this book and you've seen it just as much as I have, definitely check the trigger warnings on this one, just like everybody else says, because I don't know what is in this book. I've heard that it's very moving. It's a very captivating story. It's like a must read. Like people are like, you absolutely must read this book. It is a little hard to get through, but it is a beautiful, beautiful story, and it's beautifully written. So I ended up picking this one up. I got it for a deal. I thrifted it. So I ended up I was like, yep, I need to have it. I need to have this in my book collection. Now, on a lighter note, I ended up picking up Christina Lauren's The Unhoneymooners. This one is another absolutely raved about book all over Booktube. This one follows two individuals, one by the name of Olive and the other one by the name of Ethan, and essentially they are the maid of honor and the best man in a wedding for, I think, like her sister. Yes, her sister. So it's Olive's sister's wedding, right? And so with that being said, everyone in the wedding party ends up getting sick, a really bad disease, and ends up that the bride and groom cannot go on their honeymoon. So instead, the only two people in this world that get sick are Olive and Ethan, who are like arch nemesis. They hate each other. They're definitely enemies. And they're the only two that don't get sick. So they end up having to go on this honeymoon, and they end up having to pretend to be a couple so that they can participate in all of the activities that were planned on this 10-day honeymoon. And I believe it's in Maui, so it is an island type of thing, and essentially you are following them on a journey from enemies to lovers romance that we have, this vibe that we have going on here. I've heard really, really good things about this book, and I'm excited to have this one. This might be my first Christina Lauren book. We shall see. I don't know. And then I want to kind of get the sad books out of the way. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. The last two sad books that are in this book, we have Kristen Higgins' Pack Up the Moon. This book is something that is more recently talked about. As you can see, I got it for a deal. I picked this one up at Books A Million. It is a brand new book, but Books A Million has randomly these deals every now and then where they mark down a bunch of books. Some grieving in this book. You're following the characters after the grieving and dealing with grieving. And I've heard that this is a very, very, very sad book. So I have a lot of sad ones in this particular haul, but I've heard that not only is this a sad book, but it's a very moving story, and it's a very emotional story. And I really love the cover of this one, and I love the floppiness of this one. You gotta love the floppiness. And then the next book that I picked up is another one that is heavily talked about on Booktube. I've seen book hauls, I've seen book vlogs about this book specifically, and people are wrecked reading this book. So for me, I may end up not reading it. I'm very intimidated to read it, but I did pick it up, and I actually ended up picking up the UK version of this book because I like this one so much better. I like this cover so much better than the US version of it. This is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihira, and this is the UK version. I did get this used on eBay, I believe it was, because I could not find, I saw this edition with somebody on YouTube. Somebody showed this edition, and I was like, I have to get that edition because I like this one so much better than the guy's face on the front. I just prefer this one over it. I know that the other cover sets the tone a lot better for the book. It has a more of an emotional cover that kind of sets your expectation for the book, but I actually prefer this one. It's a thickie. I now know what they mean by UK books not being as floppy, and them being like thick and them being very stiff, but I am okay with that because I do have the edition that I want, because this one is so emotional. There's hella trigger warnings in it. There's hella shit that happens in here. It follows a story of brothers and all of their journeys. I've heard that this is a really good book, but it is a very hard one to get through. So I don't know. Maybe I'll read it. Maybe I won't. If I do, it'll probably be a little while from now. But I do have this one, and this one was inspired by Booktube. The next book was another Steph Bohr recommendation. This one was briefly mentioned, I believe, in one of her romance recommendation books, but this one is called The Truth About Heartbreak. This one actually is a series, so it comes with two other ones. I think the other one is called The Truth About Tomorrow and then The Truth About Us. So hopefully I'll read this one and then end up picking up the rest of them so I can keep them all in my collection. I love the cover of this one. I love the blue. And can I also just quickly mention how much I love when the synopsis of the books are very simple like this, because I like the paragraphs every now and then, but a lot of times I feel like they give a lot of information. When they're simple like this, where they have just simple thoughts of one of the main characters, or like just a little vibe, a little little splash of something, just a little something something without giving any details as to what is involved in the book. I truly appreciate that more than any other paragraph on the back of a book. And the next author is very famous for doing that as well. So the next books that I picked up are actually because of Miss Larry Reed's. And I'm not even going to say, should I say she's a slow burn queen? Because if I say she's a slow burn queen, you guys already know what I'm talking about. She ended up doing a full-on Mariana Zapata video where she went through all of the books, kind of give a guidance as to like what you should read, what the tropes are. She's read every single one, and I kind of want to get on that same bandwagon. So I ended up picking up 3 from her. I ended up picking up 2 sports romances and 1, I believe this one is it's a romance, but I can't remember what trope this one particularly is. But anyway, we have The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. This one is a football romance, and I've heard nothing but raving things about it. Larry Reed is not the only one that talks about this book. There are so many other people that talk about it as well. And then I also picked up Colty, which is a soccer romance. This one is an age gap romance, I believe, as well. And this one is another really, really, really heavily talked about book of hers. And then lastly, we have Wait For It, which I've heard really good things about it. Not nearly talked about as much, but it is one that is very raved about. And it also has really good reviews from those who have spoken on it. The one thing that I've heard about Mariana Zapata is that like it's super slow burn, and it like stuff doesn't really start happening until like the last 100 pages, but then when you get to the last 100 pages it's like so satisfying. But on the other hand, it's like this book is damn near 700 pages, so I have to wait 600 pages to kind of get, I don't know. I'm a little bit nervous about it. These books are very intimidating because they are so big, but I don't know. We're gonna have to figure it out, because I do want to eventually own all of her books, and I do also want to eventually have read all of her books. The next 2 books that I picked up are called You Had Me at Hola and A Lot Like Adios. Now these 2 books are by Alexis Daria. Let's talk about the covers. I love the covers of these 2. These 2 are definitely both romances in the romance category. I'm a sucker for romance, and these were talked about on Booktube. I had to end up picking them up. The next 2 books are also by another author as well that is heavily talked about on Booktube. That is Things I Wanted to Say by Monica Murphy and A Million Kisses in Your Lifetime by Monica Murphy. These are my first 2 books by this particular author. Both of these books were mentioned by Larry Reed's, Steph Bohr, and many others as well. So I decided to go ahead and bite the bullet and pick these 2 up. These are another books that are very thick. This book is damn near 550 pages, and then this one is about 500 pages, so these ones are also thick as well. But I've heard really good things about Monica Murphy, and I'm excited to have these in my book collection. Very last book that I picked up, which is another special edition or alternative cover edition to the original, which I'm extremely excited about. Not only was it mentioned on Booktube and made me want to buy it that way, but then when I read this line on the back of the book, which says, they say first loves last forever. That's exactly what I'm afraid of, and that is what made me want to buy this book. First of all, this cover is absolutely stunning, so much better than the original. I'm so glad that authors and publishers are starting to make this trend of changing their covers and making more discreet covers. I love that. It's even getting to the point that like I'm waiting a little while before buying books because I want to see if the discreet covers will end up, or if they will end up making discreet covers. But yeah, this book, absolutely stunning edition, and all because of Booktube. So yeah, those are all of the books that I ended up picking up specifically because I can't get enough of Booktube. Like, comment, and subscribe down below, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.